Welcome back to StoryTube, everybody. We have built a reputation over the last couple of months on BookTube as people who read diversely and read widely in different genres, different levels of fame and acclaim. And I think we're both quite proud of that. And then I realized late in 2023 that there's a genre that I had never tried, that I actually felt a bit snobby about, and I wanted to remedy that and give romance a go. So in December, I read like 6 or 7 romance books, and here is some of them. This is a funny one, right? Because I have never read a contemporary romance book in my life. I had read YA fantasy, which has like heavy romantic subplots and themes. I did grow up reading a lot of fan fiction, duh. Um, and I'm a big fan of rom-coms in movie form. However, contemporary romance books were never something that appealed to me. It was so far off my radar that I didn't even think about them enough to dismiss them. I just never thought about them. But if I had thought about them, I probably would have dismissed them as, yeah, just, I love romantic subplots, but the idea of the main plot and the only plot being about the romance just didn't sound very interesting to me. And I also had this idea of romance books just not being very good, which is a whole other thing to unpack on the internalized misogyny part. But yeah, so romance books were just not something that I ever considered worthy of my time, which is a very snobby thing to say. And I wanted to remedy that. I wanted to try some romance, sample a little bit, some of the most popular authors, and give it a go and see if my preconceived notions were true or not, or if I could be into the genre. So I scouted the romance, not section, because we don't really have a section in my local bookshop / workplace. But I do have some colleagues that read romance, so I asked them for recommendations, and then I picked a couple up. So in December turned into my romance sampling month. And honestly, it was mainly successful. I've really enjoyed myself. I found that I read romance really quickly, very easily, and that I get quite hooked if the bottom line is met, which is me believing in the attraction between the two people. And it has to be more than just physical attraction, because that's kind of boring. And it has to be not instantaneous and just believable. So the first one that I read was Once More with Feeling by Elissa Sussman. This is kind of a sort of second chance romance, but not quite. I'm still getting familiar with the names of all the tropes. And also Love in the Public Eye. So the main character is a former pop star, kind of reminded me of like a Britney Spears kind of figure, like this manufactured kind of pop star, and she's genuinely talented but wasn't really allowed to be herself by her label at the time. And at the time when she was big, there was a big boy band as well, and she was dating one of the guys from the boy band, but there was like an attraction with one of the other boy band members, and the boy band infamously breaks up because of her, quotation marks. The narrative picks up like 10 years later, and she reunites with the guy that she allegedly cheated with, to star and her to star and him to direct a Broadway play. And she hates him because at the time he let her take the fall for everything. She was slut shamed in the media. He got away with it, and she basically lost her career and he didn't. So she hates him. And spoiler alert, at the end she doesn't hate him anymore. But that's kind of the setup of this one, and I thought it was really fun. I have learned in my exploration of romance that I enjoy enemies to lovers, or more specifically rivals to lovers, but I need to believe why they're enemies, because if we're in a contemporary setting and they just hate each other because he's being an asshole, then I'm just like, no, thank you. Like, you're a grown man. Get over yourself. If you're a 16-year-old boy, you're allowed to be an asshole because, like, they all are. But when you're 30, get over yourself. But in this case, I found like the reasons that they have like this built up like history and anger at each other believable, but also not too insurmountable that I'd be like, no, you should never forgive each other. Like, what the fuck? So I had a really good time with this one. I devoured it in less than 24 hours. And I should give context here. I bought this book because I wanted to explore romance, but I also was feeling a bit sick and then ended up being home from work sick for a couple of days. So I was sitting on my sofa feeling sorry for myself, just drinking hot tea. So I read this in 24 hours in a little bit of a feverish state and devoured it, and then immediately went into the only other romance book that I had bought at the time, which was Beach Read by Emily Henry. So Emily Henry is huge. I see her everywhere. We have big stacks of all of her books. And I had made the assumption that she was within the Colleen Hoover sphere of things. Colleen Hoover did blurb one of her books, not this one actually. So maybe that's where I got that idea, or the fact that she's also popular on TikTok, or just my general preconceived notions about romance. I don't know, but I had this preconceived notion. And I would like to issue an apology officially to Emily Henry for ever thinking that she was in the same category as Colleen Hoover. Emily Henry is a very good writer. I loved Beach Read. I really, really loved it. And this is, I think, where it clicked for me, where I had a great time with Once More with Feeling in sort of a guilty pleasure kind of way. And I read this and I thought, no, this is a great book. This is like objectively a great book. If you like rom-coms, I see no reason for you to not like this book. It's very cute. So the setup is the main character is a writer and she writes romance novels. And she is away in this small town because she, things that I won't spoil. And there she runs into a guy that she knew from college from studying creative writing, who is now also a writer, and he writes pretentious literary fiction. And she hates him because he is a pretentious asshole that looks down on what she writes. Or at least that is what she thinks. That is the assumption that she makes about him. And they're both having writer's block, and they kind of challenge each other to try to swap genres. So she tries to write pretentious literary fiction and he tries to write a cute romance. And the dynamic is really fun. The banter between them is really fun. Again, I just really believed in their relationship and in why they would dislike and then not dislike each other. And I loved this. I think Emily Henry is a great rom-com writer. Guys, I'm really bad at sampling. If you want somebody to sample properly, you have to go to Carlos, because he will read 7 books of something and they will be 7 books by 7 different writers. And I really liked Alyssa Sussman and Emily Henry, so I bought 2 more Emily Henry books and another Alyssa Sussman book. So I read Funny You Should Ask, which is the first book by Alyssa Sussman, and very similar concept is love in the public eye, 2 people with a bit of a history, and we get like the past and the present now that they're reuniting. But in this case, it's a journalist who interviewed the next big thing, up and coming action movie star, like 10 years ago. And the article that she wrote was very flirty and went viral. And now 10 years later, they're reuniting and sparks fly. This is actually based on an article about Chris Evans, published by GQ, I think, like 10 years ago or something, when he was going to be in the Avengers. This was okay. Contrary to Once More with Feeling, I didn't quite buy that these 2 people were in love with each other. I buy that they were attracted to each other, but I didn't really see love there. And part of the issue is that in the past they spent 3 days together and then they don't see each other for 10 years and then they spend another 3 days together and they're like declaring undying love for each other, and I just didn't buy it. The moment where he says I love you for the first time, and obviously it's meant to like make your heart flutter or whatever, I was just like, really? Are you sure? So she was just infatuated with this big celebrity, and I didn't understand why he was infatuated with her because she didn't come across as particularly interesting, funny, smart, or anything. So I still read it in like 2 or 3 days because I was having a good time. It's fun, but I did lose interest in the second half when I realized, yeah, this is not giving me what I needed to give me. So it was okay. It was okay. Then I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, which is her third book, and I adored this. This, if you watched our top 10 books of the year video, was my ninth favorite book of 2023, which is saying something. This took me completely by surprise. I just, if I love beach read, this was just, it got me on a really personal level, I think. I completely fell in love with the love interest, Charlie, and that just really helped. So basically here we have Nora, who is the anti-rom-com heroine. She is the one that the main guy breaks up with to go live his happily ever after with the main character. She is the cold, career-driven, no bullshit, high heels wearing city person. And she has been broken up with multiple times in this kind of fashion where the boyfriend goes off because he's met his happily ever after. And she takes care of her sister. Well, they're both adults now, but their mother died when her sister was still a minor, and she became her sister's guardian. And there's a lot of parentification going on there, and she has never really put herself first in that regard because she's always taken care of her sister. And that kind of shows in her relationships. She's a literary agent, and she gets pulled into this vacation with her sister to a small town, and her sister wants her to loosen up and to date some locals and stuff like that, but she keeps running into this asshole editor who she had one very bad business meeting with like 2 years ago. And spoiler alert, once again, this editor is not actually an asshole. And what I really, really appreciate about this is that both characters are emotionally mature. They talk about things. There are multiple scenes where I was expecting miscommunication and she just lays all the cards on the table instead. And I was very impressed by her. I thought, yeah, that is how a 30-year-old career woman would react. It would make no sense for her to suddenly not speak. But I was expecting it to be that way. So I really appreciated that. I thought it was very mature, and there's still conflict. And for a while she had me, and I got really worried that this one might not have a happy ending, which is when I really noticed that I was into it. I was very emotionally invested. Great book. Really loved it. Then I read two more books that I don't have physically. One was The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas, which is actually her second book. The first one is The Spanish Love Deception, but they're connected but not really a sequel. So this is the best friend from The Spanish Love Deception is the main character in this one. I DNF'd this. I didn't like it at all. The main character has to leave her apartment and she has a key for her best friend's apartment, and she goes there because her best friend is on her honeymoon because like the ceiling is collapsing in her apartment or something. So she goes to stay at her best friend's studio apartment, and her best friend's cousin shows up, who she didn't know was going to stay in the apartment for a few weeks while the best friend is on her honeymoon. And it turns out that not only is she instantly ridiculously attracted to him and him to her, she also has been stalking this man online for like a year and like watching his Instagram stories every day, even though they've never met before, which was kind of creepy and weird for a grown adult woman to do. But the main thing that bothered me was that we get both of these people's POV. So like we know that they're both super into each other. Like there is so much glancing at each other's lips that I was like, people don't look at each other's lips that much. There is no way. Like, please get a room. Only they have a room. They have an apartment. Oh no, there's only one bed. Look, there's only one bed trope. That only works when the two people don't actually want to be in one bed. These are two single adults attracted to each other, confined in a studio apartment. Why is that a 400-page book? I was 50 pages in and I was like, just sleep with each other already. Like, what is the problem? There is no conflict. Any conflict is going to be completely constructed. And I feel no sexual tension because they're just instantly attracted to each other for no reason. So did not like that one, DNF'd it. And then I read How to Fake It in Hollywood by Ava Wilder. And I don't have this because a friend lent it to me. She actually lent me a big stack of romance books when I told her I was trying to get into the genre. So, and this was the first of those that I read because I mentioned liking Alyssa Sussman. And this is also a love in the public eye kind of thing. In this case, there's a kind of up-and-coming actress who gets set up with an older actor trying to make a comeback. I mean, he's not that much older. He's like 10 years older. And they get put into this like PR relationship to try to boost both of their like visibilities and careers, but they actually develop real feelings for each other. And honestly, I wasn't as invested in the actual romance in this one. Again, I kind of saw physical attraction and infatuation more than like deeper love in this one, but it did surprise me with its themes. I thought it was surprisingly dark, actually. He is dealing with some heavy stuff in terms of like his best friend died, and he's dealing with alcoholism and addiction and that kind of thing, and it's not something that's just like brushed under the carpet for like drama or anything. It's relevant and it doesn't just like easily go away. And in her case, we're kind of tackling like, you know, child actors and her relationship with her family based on that. And I thought those things were quite interesting, and I was actually in it more for that than for the actual romance. So it wasn't my favorite, but I thought it was competently written, and I appreciated the things that it was trying to tackle, even though it didn't go like super deep, don't get me wrong. It is still a romance book, but I did like those parts of it. And then the latest romance that I read, I only finished this a couple of days ago, actually no, yesterday, was You and Me on Vacation. Another Emily Henry, because I am now going to be reading everything that this woman writes. And this is a Friends to Lovers. It's Alex and, what's her name? Poppy, who have been going on holidays together once a year for 12 years. They met in college and they've always been best friends. And now it's their last vacation together. And can they be more than friends? And look, it's Emily Henry. She's a good writer. I enjoyed it. It's very, very cute. I don't think Friends to Lovers is my favorite. Because, like, if you're so fucking close for 12 years, how did you not realize sooner? And you've both dated people while you were clearly in love with your best friend. I don't know, like, just not my favorite, but it is very cute. And particularly the Alex, the love interest, Alex, is very obviously meant to be autistic. I mean, at first I was like, maybe this is just me reading into it and it's unintentional, because he said something like they're in a car and they're in traffic, he's driving, and she asks him like if she can connect her phone to play music, and he's like, no. And he basically tells her that she can't play music while they're in traffic because he can't concentrate on traffic if she's playing music. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And then he also tells her that he hates the saxophone, and I just feel seen. And I would like to thank him and Emily Henry on behalf of the saxophone hating community. I don't hate it. I just don't like it. But yeah, so he was definitely autistic. As it went along, I was like, oh, you are on the spectrum. I am this character. And maybe that is why I didn't get as invested, because I wasn't in love with the love interest as much as I was the love interest. So anyway, yeah, a cute book, a cute rom-com, just not my favorite. My least favorite of the three Emily Henrys I've read. So yeah, romance. I read some Friends to Lovers, some Enemies to Lovers, some like celebrity romance, a really dumb one, and overall I had a great time. I like romance. Who knew? Me, hopeless romantic my entire life, liking romance books. Truly shocking. I don't know how it took me 28 years to come to this conclusion, but here we are. I got over myself. I read some romance, and I liked it. And now there's a whole new genre of fiction open to me, and I am so excited. So please give me your recommendations. But first, I thought it would be fun because I have, what is it, 7 books? I thought it would be fun to do a bit of a ranking of the ones that I read. So at the bottom, at number 7, is The American Roommate Experiment, because it was not good and I didn't like it. Then at number 6, I would put Funny You Should Ask, because it was fine and not super memorable. And yeah, it wasn't bad, but I was just not very into it. I think Alyssa Sussman got a lot better with her second book. At number 5, I would probably put How to Fake It in Hollywood, which wasn't a bad book, but it did not quite get me invested into the relationship. Kind of similar to Funny You Should Ask in that way, that it just kind of stayed on a superficial level to me, where it felt more like physical attraction, or a strong physical attraction, than like real love. But I did like some of the heavier themes in the book more than in Funny You Should Ask. So I don't think it's a bad book, but it just didn't quite have that oomph. So number 5. Then at number 4, I'd say You and Me on Vacation, which is actually People We Meet on Vacation in the US for some reason. Like that's the original title. So yeah, this one is a good book. I like Emily Henry. Friends to Lovers is just not my favorite. So I was invested, but not like edge of my seat invested. So that at number 4. At number 3, I would put Once More with Feeling, which was just really cute. And honestly, like, I was invested in the romance, but I also just really liked the fact that it's a love letter to musical theatre. And I don't particularly love or have a connection to musical theatre, but I love love letters. I love when people unapologetically love things, unabashedly love things, and pay homage to them. There was a lot in this book about finding who you truly are and pursuing that, regardless of what, you know, people around you, society, whatever, thinks you should do or thinks success looks like. And I just really loved that. It was kind of heartwarming. And I also did really buy the relationship between the main character and the love interest. So that's number 3. At number 2, I would put Beach Read, which again, like, I love Emily Henry. I love the 2 main characters, the whole writing challenge thing of it all. Had a great time. And at number 1, of course, Book Lovers by Emily Henry, which is just a new favorite. I loved that book so much. So yeah, that was my exploration into romance. Please give me your recommendations if you have any down in the comments. I have a stack there that my friend lent me, so I can't remember any authors right now. I know one of them is period romance, which I haven't tried yet, and I'm not sure is for me, but I will try anything. Lucy Score is on my radar as well. I'm not sure if Anna Huang appeals to me. Ali Hazelwood is on my radar, but I haven't tried her. So yeah, let me know if you have any recommendations. Everything is welcome. I did read one other thing because, well, I mean, I read contemporary romance and I turns out I like it. And I also like fantasy, obviously. So I figured, hey, maybe it's time to try romantasy. And I read Fourth Wing. That's all I'm going to say. Review to come. But in the meantime, yeah, like the video if you liked it. If you would like more romance videos on this channel, dislike it. If you dislike it, that's fine. Subscribe if you enjoyed this and you haven't subscribed already. All those things that I'm supposed to say to you. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the comments and see you next time.